let's see. Let's see if we're live. No pressure, Sean and Zach.
Right.
You're just broadcasting to the internet as well as all the people in the room.
Audience of 7 people that already know everything we're doing, probably.
So let's see if we're live.
30,000
Oh, I did YouTube/YouTube. There's my brain. We are live now. That's not the right
You need a
title.
website. Why not do it yourself?
And I got a stupid
With
ad
Wix,
too.
you can create your own professional website. Choose from
What a
hundreds of
jerk.
templates.
We are live. So there we are. We're live. We're
You
live.
need a website.
So
Why not do it yourself?
Yeah, I got a stupid
With
ad
Wix,
too.
you can create your own professional website. Choose from
What a
hundreds of
jerk.
templates.
Hi, one person. We are live. So there we are. We're live. We're
You
live.
need a website.
So
Why not do it yourself?
all right. So we got Meetup starting. Our first presenter is up. Welcome to the stage. Hi, one person. So there we are. We're live. We're live. So all right. So we got Meetup starting. Our first presenter is up.
My name is Zach Citro.
Welcome to the
I am an
stage.
animator.
Hi, one person. So there we are. We're live.
This should be my and then
So all right. So we got Meetup starting. Our first
buddy,
presenter
things
is
along the way.
up.
My name is Zach Citro. My specialty there is mainly 3D animation and kind of everything that goes in that. Buddy, things along the way. Things off with my demo reel. Just so you guys, my specialty there is mainly 3D animation and kind of everything that goes and along that. Buddy, things along the way. Things off with my demo reel. Real audio. My specialty for that is mainly 3D animation and kind of everything that goes and along that. Buddy, things along the way. Things off with my demo reel. Here, audio. Just play. My specialty for that is mainly 3D animation and along that.
I think we have something going on from Corona.
I mean, we don't like need it, but
Sometimes, there we go. I had my YouTube playing. YouTube always screws me.
wait. So, hey, do you have like a? How do I turn up the volume on this?
It's cranked on the laptop.
Ah, fart
So-
sounds. Great. Okay, here we go.
It's not too loud.
I can turn it down. All right. Hey, thank you. And that's my time. All right. So today I'm going to be showing you guys some of the project files and characters that we've done for a lot of the projects that you just saw in the reel and some other ones. And then after that boring stuff, we'll get into some more hands-on things and some like tips and tricks on modeling and rigging. Not so much in weight painting because I hate doing that, and maybe in a little bit of animation tips and tricks too. Let's see. So this first one was for WoW TV. I have like a string out here. We did 3 commercial spots. I guess I'll just let this kind of speak for itself, just so you guys get a little familiar with the project and the characters we developed for it.
First came TV, then VCR. DVRs in every room, and before long, even PC wanted to play. It was overwhelming, but not anymore. Introducing Ultra TV from WoW. One simple solution that does it all. Channel listings, whole home DVR, and PC content on your TV. All yours through our new smart menu. Ultra TV, only from WoW. At first, TV led an ordinary life, so it partnered with the VCR, and that was great. For a while. Then came DVR, and the battle over who records what. But now, those days are over. Introducing Ultra TV from WoW, the whole home solution that lets you record up to 6 shows at once and watch them back in any room of the house. Ultra TV, only from WoW. It's simply extraordinary. There was a time when TV was the center of attention, until PCs became the hip spot to store your entertainment. Which left TV out of the picture. Until now. Introducing Ultra TV from WoW by wirelessly bringing movies,
So you kind of
music,
get
and
the
photos
picture
from
there
your
on what that character's doing and kind of how we needed him to animate and roll around the screen. We needed him to like bend and twist and have certain facial expressions to match his emotions. So let me first show you. This is like some sketches I'd get from my creative director, which I would need to bring into cinema and model. It didn't open. There we go.
Just do photos. Yeah.
Right here. I'm going to be doing this a lot.
Sorry.
Okay, alright, that works. They're out of order, but that's fine. We'll just show them like this. So this is, we needed to do kind of like a vintage TV, which is that top one there, and then kind of like a newer age TV, which is, you know, wider, more modern. So these are kind of like the character turns, side, back, front. Also, sometimes it's nice to have a top angle too, especially if you're going to do like an arm extension. And then some notes on each character as I model them, just to kind of get a better idea as to what they're going to look like, maybe in motion or in a certain expression. Yeah, so that's the vintage one. Boxier, more square, rounded corners, stuff like that. And so this was the first character I've ever rigged before, so it was good that it was simple, and the modeling wasn't too hard, as you can imagine. The box was pretty straightforward. Let's go with the vintage guy here. So, oh, actually, before I do this,
Yeah, sorry for the UI there. Just you want to swap it.
it's not bad. I think I can actually load one that might make things a little easier for me. Hey, sorry.
I like our UI. Yeah, we like it.
If it opens. Anyway, well, that's the box, and it's got 4 wheels on it, and those are all IK rigged, so that when the box, you know, animates, it'll the legs will move along with it. Let's go here. I don't need it. Hold on.
Is it a Mac? Is it a Mac workspace? What program is this?
Yeah.
Shoot.
I've been using a PC recently, so I like sort of know what I'm doing. No, now I don't.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry.
It's because you're using Prime, not Studio, right?
Yeah.
This is not Cinema 4D's problem.
Oh wait, is that really why? Oh wait, no, it's Studio.
Yeah. I think it probably just wants that file to be in the preferences, maybe.
We don't have to open it. It's no big deal.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. We'll try later. I'm not much of a quitter, so. Okay, anyway, so this is going to be the rig again. Pretty basic. I'll show you kind of some controls I put into it. I'm not going to get too technical behind it because I feel like that might be a little boring. But anyway, so this, let me get the layers palette out. This is our little guy, and okay. And so if I move this guy around, then all the legs and stuff kind of go with it. Sean, I'm sorry, I have to do one other thing.
You're fine, man. Change it up.
Navigation, reverse orbits. Okay. And the legs kind of move along with them. So that makes it obviously a lot easier when animating, so I don't have to like be bending the legs and stuff to go along and match his movements. And then also with this guy, I use a little bit of espresso, which this might look a little bit like a lot, but it's really not. It's just kind of like if one thing is one value, then I put it into a range mapper, which spits out a new value. And I did that for all the legs and stuff, and made some little controllers so that if I want him to kind of have his legs go in towards the top and his wheels go out, then he's got the functionality to do that. And then the reverse of that as well. So when I'm animating this guy, it's just easier than grabbing each leg and positioning it in. And then each one of these feet have little controls as well, so that I can rotate the knee, or this is kind of a ball control, which I put in there to kind of fix some issues if the wheel looked like it was like coming off the ground when it wasn't supposed to. Yeah, so this is a pretty basic rig. And then for the deformations, I just used basic like bend, twist, bulge, and tilt deformers. I probably would have put all these up here as I was animating, just so they're like easier to grab. And then select all, grab these guys, show always. So then if I needed this guy to kind of roll over here and kind of do something like that, then I could also grab that. I could also adjust kind of his expression with whatever he was doing. And then all this stuff, all these are keyframeable, and that's kind of how we went through shot by shot and made this guy work. So let's close that guy, and now we're going to open just a scene file from the project to show you what that looked like. So this is one of the scenes I like the best. It kind of has the little vintage TV interacting with this dog computer type thing that was originally like a monster. It shows him coming in, shaking his head, avoiding the objects. I'm playing around with that guy.
Did you do dynamics for the stuff on, or is that hand?
Yep, that was all dynamics, and I think I tweaked the dynamics with after like baking the keyframes. And then I always think this kind of view is cool to see, kind of like an outside perspective of what's going on in the scene. And then I did also want to show objects, kind of like how much goes into like even a simple rig like that. So this is kind of like, some of this stuff is hard for me to see. I don't know about you guys. So this is just the TV, and if you look, I'll close this. I'm screwing up your layout here. So if I unfold all this, it kind of shows. That's the computer puppy. This is just the TV here. All these objects, and I have like bones and connectors. Like if you saw in my last file, I basically had like, there was like 8 objects in my object manager, because that's the only thing I really needed to control. But then like on the back end, there's all these controllers that I kind of rigged up so that everything would work properly. And that is that file.
You show like how you rig one of the rigs?
Yeah, we could do that. I was going to do that after I show a couple more. And then
R12.
yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay. And then this one was for a company that helped young teens with like birth control and stuff. This I'm just going to show real quick, just because this character was a lot more in depth. Had you know, appendages, was more of like less of like a box. So that was all you really need to see for that one. Just kind of showing you like the characters. Like this character didn't need to like walk or anything. Just kind of need to be in a stationary position and just move like facial expressions and their limbs a little bit. So for this character, this was some of the reference that I was given. Let's open this up. Photos. Oh, there we go. That's the baby. These are just sketches that I would use for like reference as I'm modeling this character. This was my first pass at modeling it, and after showing this to my creative director, he kind of came back at me with that and said, you know, your proportions are all wrong. So I had to modify the character to fit that. Open. And this is 3D character. I won't spend too much time showing you her, but there was a few kind of cool things we did. This character had fuzz just all over like her whole body to make it more look like a puppet, which was interesting to do, and all that's kind of like attached to her mesh. Her hair, each strand has a bone structure to it, so it's got like dynamic IKs on it. Whoop. And there we go. So that was like kind of a fun thing to figure out. This was a few years ago, so I was still like pretty new at this whole like modeling, rigging character stuff. But she has like some controls for, you know, almost like torso controls, and then this other one here controls just her shoulders, so you can move her shoulders without moving her arms too much. And then, you know, stuff like leg controls and things like that. A lot of facial controls as well. Let's see. Yeah, so that was kind of a fun little character to work on. And this is just something I found. I did a quick recording of me animating her in one of the scenes, so I'll just kind of scrub through this really quick. This kind of shows the process of her like opening her laptop and kind of you know, putting down keyframes and adjusting and putting down more keyframes and like just kind of massaging this woman to get her to work the way I wanted to. She was supposed to be more of like a puppet, more of like a puppet, so I had a little bit more freedom there as to like if things don't look 100% natural. Yeah, that was that one. Okay. Next, all right. This was one we did last year. This was for Einstein's Bagels. I'll show you guys this whole video. We did 3 little promo videos for them, each like 30 seconds, I believe, maybe 1:15 in there. Yeah, so those were super fun to work on. This model was pretty similar in ways to that first TV one, whereas we used like some bend deformers for a lot of the movement, the body movement, and so just kind of showing you again the process of going from sketch to 3D. Let's open these. These are the sketches for each of the characters, front and side, back, and then a 3/4. And I would normally like cut these out from this and then bring them into Cinema, which I'll show you as like my reference as I'm modeling. So then this is the cannonball dude. It's the assistant. One of the divers. Another diver. Okay. So after grabbing that kind of stuff, we would model out something like this. Uh-oh. Let me see if this renders. Okay, so that's our guy all rendered. I think the textures is having a little trouble loading. So for this guy, pretty similar to the TV, we use some bend deformers and stuff to get him to kind of animate the way we want. Make it. Ugh.
Sorry.
It's alright.
Oh, jeez.
It'll open up to the standard.
Software, my bad.
Okay.
Don't send that. Take a second.
Oh yeah. Now he's all loaded up nice. Yeah. So yeah, for this guy, it's for these characters, kind of the same thing. Oh, hold on.
For your deformers, you have like a constraint tag on it?
Yeah, so down here we actually sculpted the geometry on these guys to get that, like, the siding of him, we needed to be kind of like high detailed to be like a bagel bite, essentially, like a teared piece of bagel. So it took a little figuring out, but you can essentially like build a character low poly and then put a sculpt tag on him and then sculpt the shit out of him so he's like hot, like a nice high poly mesh. And then in here,
Is that easier than using like a displacement map?
It kind of depends on the look you're going for. A lot of times with a displacement map, you can't see like immediate results. You kind of have to render it out, and it could be a little weird, especially with like skin and clothing and stuff. Like when you render, you'll notice like it's bulging through. So with the sculpt tag, you could just see it immediately. It's right in the viewer, and then kind of freeze these and allow deformations. So like this took a little bit of figuring out, but has the functionality in there. And then these arms, we wanted to make able to kind of like move far up and stuff, because they had some pretty like extreme positions where they're reaching up really high or like down really low. And yeah, that's kind of it for this guy. Again, it's kind of like the same functionality as the other ones, as the TVs. Oh, except for I added some facial controls in here, which these control the eyebrows, and these control the pupils. Again, it's just like some simple espresso, where you input one value, and then it spits out another value, kind of linked to this. These pupils and these eyelids are linked to these texture positions actually. So, like if you look in here, let's see, that's one of his eyes. In here, and then let's look at this. You can see it's just linked to those parameters of the texture, and this shape here is these controllers here have just a restraint tag on them, so they're a protection tag on them, so that they can't go past this little bounding box that I created. Let's close that. Alright. Okay. Now we got just one more project file, and then we'll get into some other stuff. Or two more, sorry. So this is Ned. This is a character that basically I wanted to learn everything I could about rigging after I started doing those characters, because I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a fun puzzle to like work out. So I created this guy just kind of as a personal project. So that took me, I'd say that took me probably, the rigging took, the modeling took a while, because I was modeling him like off and on throughout like a year, so that took a while. But then the rigging stuff probably, I think, took maybe like a month of working on it, like quite a bit. And if I ran into issues, I wouldn't skip over them. I would like figure them out, and then like I think I spent like an entire night trying to figure out the tension tag, which is if he bends his knee or his knee or his like torso area, then that wrinkle just forms on its own, so I don't have to like put any kind of pose morphing in there. Yeah, that was a fun guy to work on.
For those of you wondering, Zach doesn't sleep.
I try to sometimes, but again, this is like kind of some character reference stuff that I can't draw at all, and I'm pretty bad with like character stuff in general. I feel like I just know like the technical aspects of it, so for anything I create, I need like a ton of reference, and there we go. And I wanted to originally model this guy after 2D, I think his name is, from the Gorillas, and also kind of like Sid from Toy Story, that evil kid. Someone had already done one, so I kind of like, ripped this off a little bit. And then this is a great video that I pulled a lot of reference for his head. Yeah, and like that's was more of like a hair reference, but all this stuff I've just like really tried to figure out how like did they model this guy's lips, and how did they do his teeth, and how did they do the nose, and you know, like this side profile was a really good reference for me. Anyway, things like that I think are really helpful when you're trying to develop a character and you can't draw very well. So after I modeled that guy, I started test animating him and stuff, and I was like, you know what, like the model itself isn't that great. There's a lot of areas that were kind of problematic. So I started modeling Ned's counterpart, this female, which looks kind of like this. She's nowhere near perfect, more of like just a practice file here. And the things I want to point out about this character, I'll demonstrate afterward, but things like the like knees and like elbows and stuff, where there's like a bending area, then it's good to take these edge loops and kind of like spread them out. Oh, shoot, hold on, is that reverse orbit again? And kind of like taper them out to where it's going to bend, because if you don't do that, then they're going to collide into each other. And I have a file that I'll show you after that, after this. And then also with the hip area, when you kind of like walk, you have, you know, that like V shape. Whereas with Ned, I just kind of, the edge loops were just straight across, which looked really unnatural. Then moving up here, the shoulder, I'll show you how to kind of properly, I mean, there's multiple ways of doing all this stuff, but how to properly model that. Along with, you know, same kind of idea with the elbow as you would for the knee, where you kind of like taper the edge loops. And then the hand, I'll go through that a little later too, as well as the face. After looking at a lot of reference and stuff, I kind of realized everyone was using the same pattern, as having like edge loops around the eyes and like the mouth, and then kind of like the nose and mouth and face itself and the ear as well. So that will close, and we will get into the modeling stuff. All right. Take a sip of water real quick. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. Okay, let's do... Start with the knee, and this is a pretty, you know, basic basic model here. And what I was talking about is these edge loops right here. See how they kind of, you know, they like taper. So if you have a bending joint that takes like, if they were just straight across, it'd be a lot sooner for them to like cross into each other. So this helps when you're kind of like modeling characters to taper certain areas, especially like fingers, elbows, knees, and things like that. Let's do this. Let's see, that's the knee. Let's go with the waist. We'll just go kind of right on up. There we go. And then, kind of as I mentioned earlier with the waist, if you have, if you're kind of modeling upwards on your like cylinder, let's say your leg, then you'll get to a point where you want to kind of get that V shape, in the pelvic region, and then that's when you can kind of build up off of there rather than coming, you know, straight across here. I keep doing that. No, it's all right. Not your fault. I gotta get used to PCs, man. Okay, let's do. Let's do the shoulder. Now, this is how I originally would model characters. Is kind of, you know, build the torso out. Oh, that was weird. I don't know what happened there. Kind of build this torso, right? And then you just want to extrude these out to make an arm. But in reality, what you kind of want to do here to get some more geometry on the shoulder for when you animate it is something more similar to this, where you would, I'm going to quickly kind of show you. You have your torso, put your edge loops in here, you know, shape it however you want. Come on, grab that. There we go. And then kind of extrude this out. Oops, hotkeys. Out and then downward. And then after doing that, you just kind of want to. This is ugly at first, but just move this stuff around. Ugh. move this around to kind of better fit your character. And I know this is like super simple, quick example, but then eventually throw some more geometry in there, and you can round it up. Where is your brush tool?
You got aiming at a T-pose there with your arm straight up?
Yeah, normally I like to do that for the characters, especially with like weighting. If you're gonna auto weight your character and you, like their arms are down by their side, then you're gonna end up grabbing like parts of the leg and stuff, and it's gonna get real messy. So what's happening?
I told you to watch out for the windows. Sorry.
All right, there we go. So, you know, this is pretty ugly right now, but you kind of, where are your brush attributes?
I think your attribute manager is locked.
Yeah, you're right. Look at you. Look at you. There we go. This is the first time over here. Anyway, you know, if that was a little prettier, that's kind of, you're getting yourself a little more of a shoulder. Poor example, but you get the basics of it. Let's see.
And there you got more vertices and edges on the top.
What's that?
You got more vertices and edges on the top, so
Mhm.
it lends itself to bending better at the shoulder.
Right, because the other way, if it was more like this one here, or that's the good one, more like this, you just kind of, I mean, you could put more edge loops in there, but they're kind of unnecessary edge loops. This is like the only one it's relying on, which is right there. And if you can throw more in, but like then you gotta you add an edge loop to like the whole body and stuff, it just kind of gets messy. After kind of doing it this way for a little while, I just realized that building it out the other way is a better way to do it.
Do you ever find that you have issues if you have the end bonds in there when you're trying to do a joint? Do you find any issues with that?
For n-gons, I usually eliminate all the n-gons I can and just model with quads. That's just kind of like the best way. You're gonna have the most luck with that. So any n-gons, I'll just try and get rid of them, or if I can't figure out how to, I'll connect some edge loops and stuff, and you know, just like it's more of a puzzle. Yeah. Let's see. And then For the hand is pretty straightforward. Hands are really hard to do, but the way to kind of get started on them, I think, is pretty straightforward. With the Ned character, I'll tell you guys a little secret. I just grabbed a hand from one of the preset models in Cinema and just slapped it on that guy, because I spent like days trying to model a hand like correctly. This is supposedly kind of like the way, like a good base start to a hand. And that's kind of like, you start with a cube. I usually always start with a cube just to keep everything in quads. And then kind of just build the fingers out, and then as you go, just keep adding more geometry and more detail, and then it seems like it'll never get there, but eventually it does. Okay, and then let's do the face, or the head. So for the head, if you guys remember, kind of on that tiny character, I had like edge loops for like the eyes, and then kind of like the eyes and the mouth and nose, and the mouth itself, and like on the ears as well. A good way to start a head is, usually you can, I like to start with a cube, but instead of starting with a cube, you can either start with a cube that you throw in a subdivision surface once, subdivide it one time, and that'll give you this same shape for the most part. Or you can start with a sphere, turn the sphere into a hexa whatever drawn, and turn the segments down. If it's at 4, it's just a cube anyway, so you could just bump this up to, let's say, 6, and then you pretty much got the same shape as you do here. So you can collapse this or collapse this, and then you have your basic start to a beautiful looking head. And let's just turn these off, and then after that you can kind of start cutting out the areas for the eyes, and eventually turn that into cutting out an area for the mouth, and the nose, and the ears. And I mean, when you first start modeling anything from scratch, it's not going to look very pretty. So you just kind of keep working with it, and adding more vertices and adding more detail as you go, and you'll probably as you go want to delete vertices as well, and delete edge loops, and kind of refine and keep working towards it to your final product. So I'm going to show you guys some other modeling. What am I doing on time here? Alright, I'm going to go through this stuff quick. Some modeling tricks and stuff I've learned, which a lot of them are really simple, but they took me a couple of years to even realize. One of them, let's do that same thing, is when I didn't know that if you subdivide a surface, there's like a smooth subdivision box. It took me forever to find that out, but let's say if you have something like this, let's go to mesh, commands, where's mesh, where, I usually have a little button for it on my, there we go. Just that right there. It took me, I mean, I used Cinema for like 2 years before I did that. Basically, that's the same as taking certain polygon faces and essentially putting a hypernerve on them. So there's that. That's kind of helpful if you're doing like a head and you want the top of the head to be, more nice and smooth or something, whereas you want the rest of the jaw line or whatever to be kind of low poly. Let's see. Triangles I try to avoid too, so I would actually go in and clean all this stuff up. Mainly because if you put this into a subdivision surface, you're going to see like the geometry kind of looking really weird down there when you render it out, you know, and not smooth.
Do you have techniques for turning triangles into quads and endons?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the. Sorry. It depends on the model. You know, if you can, like, if you have a plane like this, I'd have to have like an example prepared, I guess. But it's a lot of just kind of like figuring out how certain things are gonna work. So if we like triangulate that, then you can kind of go in and, I don't know, something as simple as like, you know, that, like these can be, if you dissolve these guys, I think that's just, is it MN? Yeah, then you got quads right there. You know, that was a pretty simple example, but if you have like multiple triangles, then you can kind of find ways to merge those together and make them into quads. Let's see. I'm going to skip over some of this other stuff. One thing I've always used for organic modeling is, you just saw me kind of use the brush tool, or, you know, sculpting tools always all work, and regular modeling as well without using the sculpt tag. But let's just make this 444. So I actually made little scripted buttons for my brush tool. I pretty much, when I'm modeling anything organic, I do a lot of like smoothing, and then smoothing to like refine the shape, and then a lot of smearing. So if I need something to kind of go in a certain direction, then, you know, I'll just kind of pull it that way, and then I usually hit my little button or my keyboard shortcut, and then you can kind of smooth it out, and it comes in handy a lot with modeling character stuff, I feel like, especially in the head area. Let's see. A few other modeling things, and then we'll move on to rigging really quick. One tool that I started using more is one object, is the cloth object. Instead of kind of putting everything into a subdivision surface to add more geometry to it. So like, let's say this is 444. Oops, 444. And I wanted to keep its sharp edges. Then actually, I'm going to do this with a different object. Do this one. So with this shape here, let's say if I throw this into a subdivision surface, then it's going to round out all the corners, which is okay for a lot of things that I might want. But if I wanted to keep that same geometry and just kind of round it a little bit, then a cool tool to use is the cloth object here. You can put it in there, and then from that, you know, it rounds it a little bit, and it gives you a little bit of control down here as to wrong one, as to how much it rounds it out. And then that also, in like combined with the subdivision surface, can give you a lot of like interesting results. And for certain objects, I've kind of played around with both, just kind of depending on the look I was going for. So that's a good one. Okay, I think we'll move on to rigging some stuff real quick. How are we doing on time here? We got probably another 10-15 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that, does the bar close at 10?
Teach you rigging. Oh, this is, we're on bar time.
Okay.
Not walk stumbling distance.
Isn't there one right there?
Yeah, we're like for me.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't want to get too detailed into rigging, EJ. I apologize for that, but I mean I can some other time. I thought everyone hates rigging. Nobody likes rigging except for me. I think, at least. So I'll show you guys how to do basic leg rig. Do you know how to do that? Kind of. Okay. So this one, I'll kind of show you the end product first, and then I'll show you how it got from there. Got to there. Let's see. So this is a master control for the foot to move this around. Oh man, this computer is weird. To kind of move the leg, the foot around as well as the knee. And then you also want a toe control here for like standing on the tippy toes or something, as well as a ball control which leaves the toe stationary but moves the rest of the foot. And then this ankle goal is essentially the same thing as this master foot control. And then you also want a little toe wiggle. So we'll just I'll just delete all this and all this, and we will start from there. So we can kind of pretend that this is a little character's guy's foot. There we go. And to set up this IK chain, sorry, hold on. Okay, there we go. To set this up, you want to put essentially an IK from the waist down to the ankle, and then ankle to the ball, and then ball to the toe. We'll just do it live. So from the thigh to the ankle, so we go to character, commands, and create IK chain. And this is your ankle goal here, which allows you to move it up. But when you make that, it doesn't allow you to rotate the foot. So we gotta get that fixed. Before we do that, we're gonna put another one from the ankle to the ball. Commands, create. Did I just do that? Okay, that's the ball goal. And then do the ball to the toe as well. And commands, create IK chain. Okay, so now we have our three. I'm gonna color these green. There we go. Hopefully I remember how to do all this. Hold on 1 second. And now create a master control for this ankle goal, so you can copy and paste it. Let's just call this master. And then inside that we want to put, see if I can remember this. I might need to reference my other file. Put the ankle inside the ball, and then I'm going to just open my other one. Okay, so yeah, the ankle goes under the ball, and then you create two separate, you want to create two duplicate nulls. We just duplicated the ankle one, so this is the master. And then we also want to duplicate the toe one as well. And so this is the toe. I got to keep referencing this. I'll just copy it. No.
Sorry, PC shortcuts.
Hey. I thought I did it right. I don't know what happened. Okay, there we go. So we have the toe goal. This is toe control. We'll put the ball under this one. I should have made this red. just to kind of show the difference. And then that is controlling how we want it to. It's kind of like the hierarchy of this stuff can get like kind of confusing, for sure. And I'm doing a terrible job explaining it, maybe. But
is this a technique you figured out? Or you found
no. I mean, like this is all stuff I've just learned offline. Primarily, Brett Bayes on Cineversity. These were like tutorials I watched in like from 2009, and then the character builder came out, which I don't really like using because I feel like it's almost like too complex.
Because, yeah, I don't know much about C4D, but some of the other packages have some pre-made rigs
Right.
you could use, but it may not do what you exactly want to do. And so if you're going to build something from scratch, there's a few ways you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. I know where to fix it if it gets messed up. For the most part.
Is the master just like is it connected to the IK tag at all?
So the master is these are the ones that have the goals are the ones that are connected to the IKs, and
Masters are just like nulls that you're controlling everything.
right. And a lot of times you saw in my characters how I would have like those kind of control objects, like the little like circles or whatever. A lot of times I'll just create a new null and then use a parent constraint or a PSR constraint, depending on what bone structure it is, and then I'll link that to the control. So I'll have all my controls in like one hierarchy, and then it's just like linked to the bones, which I can have hidden. Okay, so then the toe goal, we had to make a duplicate of the ball. Copy paste, which got a little messed
So
up.
the next time you're watching a Pixar film,
Think about all this.
about all this.
But yeah, this is kind of getting there. It took a little while to get there. Sorry about that, EJ.
So for stuff like that, like you don't even need a pole for some of this stuff. It's just
For
you eventually need to make all the poles and stuff.
so yeah,
For the ankle, because you were saying how the ankle twist, you couldn't do that really, right?
right. So like, let's go back to this one here, the one I did more correctly. For this one, I wouldn't put a pole, obviously, for these controls here, because you don't really need them. I mean, this toe wiggle is able to move from like side to side. I don't think your foot can do that, but if you wanted to, go for it. Yeah. But then for the ankle, which was the goal for that, we went from the thigh down to the ankle. This one here, I'll add a pole vector to that, and then that'll control the knee rotation depending on where you position that. I'll usually put that straight out in front, and then if we want to move this up, then grab that pole and we can move this, grab that pole and move this from side to side. Yeah, so that's kind of like a basic foot with the toe controls, and things like that. Next, quickly I'll go over the kind of how I do a hand, and I'll just do one of the fingers because it's just the same concept applied to all the rest of them. Arm. Okay. So for the hand, this is kind of like the hierarchy of everything. Shoulder down to, down to the elbow, down to the wrists, and then this will be an IK. So go to character commands, create IK chain, which you can kind of bend and move around. And then this wrist, we can, this was kind of like what I was talking about when I'll use a parent constraint. So if I put a constraint tag on character tags, constraint tag onto this wrist, then I can drop my goal into here, and then when I move this around, I can also, this should rotate with it. I think I missed a step here. Transform, maintain original parent. Parenting that into there. And that's something I think is a little messed up with my yeah, I don't think it's the PC. I think it's user error on this one. I think nope, I can't figure it out. I screwed that one up. But what I wanted to show you is kind of the finger controls on how I would get a finger to bend with what is it, with pose morph. So pose morph essentially, like, you can pick a certain state that an object's in, and then like create another state for it, and then you can almost like blend between the two. So for all the fingers and toes, and a lot of people do it for faces as well, I'll do hierarchy rotation, and then in here it'll show you this is like your original pose, so we'll just call it OG, and then this will be, we'll just do a curl, like a finger curl. And so if I kind of go down the hierarchy here and bend these, then I have my OG stance and then my finger curl stance. Let's actually change this one too. So there. And then so when I want to animate it, I can just use this slider. And then usually for my character, I'll put in some user data, which object. How do I? I'm having a major brain fart here. Where is it? Oh, right here. Yeah, right in front of me. Jeez. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm sweating up here. Alright, so let's just do index curl. Oh, that didn't type.
PC.
Index curl. And then we'll make this float slider. Float slider. That's kind of the parameter of what this is right down here. And so let's just have it be 0 to 100 works perfectly fine. We have it named index curl, and then you can use some espresso, black espresso box. That is scary.
Sorry. Customization there.
And you can grab your object that you have the user data connected to. Let's go down to user data. There's our index curl. And then that will drive this parameter. So if I drag this over, tag properties curl strength, then now in theory this should slide with it. And so I'll do that if I'm doing like a hand. I'll do that for like all the fingers, or like even with like the toe and like the ball control and stuff. And then when you saw kind of like the little like face controllers that I had, I would also do this like same kind of system with that as well. Let's see. I think I'm over time, but hopefully you guys learned some stuff. And I didn't get through a lot of things I thought I would be able to, but maybe we'll save that for next time. Yeah, any questions? Let's go with you first.
Have you ever exported any of the stuff as an SDX for like a game engine?
We tried to export a rig as a collada file into Unity and then use that for 3JS, which all those words I just said, I don't know what they mean, but but as far as like for a video game engine, no, I've had no experience with that. I know, I'm sure like the modeling needs to be a lot different, but yeah, I've had no experience in that.
In theory, it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, for like your TV animation that you did, like what was kind of your overall like, production hours for that particular project?
The animation of the TV itself actually went pretty quickly. I would say what took the longest for that project was we had to kind of like color correct the green screen footage of like the shirt and stuff, and we used like the auto roto brush in After Effects. And I took a screenshot of my computer. You know how it does like _1 every time it crashes? I think I seriously, it was like this long on my computer screen. It just kept going _1. So the production time for the 3D animation I thought went by pretty quick. It was pretty painless. We could get away with a lot because you know, there wasn't really like a ground plane that the wheels had to like stick to the whole time, and we used like sketch and tune, so a lot like we could just get away with a lot there.
So like less or more than a week?
Oh, it was more than a week. I'd say probably like a week to 2 weeks for each one. So of the 3 spots, maybe shorter than that. Oh yeah, there's always a couple of those nights. True. I would say it was like a week or 2 for each one, right? 3. That is wrong.
And you would say the other one where you had kind of the puppet, that was more that was probably a harder project, would you say?
The puppet one?
Yeah.
That one, I feel like the character animation was pretty minimal in that. The thing that took the longest for that was getting like our textures and our rendering settings to like look really good. As far as character animation go, that was like pretty simple.
So you're looking like, you know, like 2 to 3 weeks per project then essentially?
Yeah, some less, some more. I think the Einstein's one took about a month. Yeah. Any other questions?
Working with legwork, are you ever like starstruck with like huge clients, or like I guess the better question is, when did you, what client was it where you kind of realized, holy shit, I'm doing it? Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm in the industry, I'm doing the big commercial work. I
think that's the WoW TV one, the one that I showed, was probably the first broadcast spot I remember doing, and that was one of the first projects I worked on with legwork. And I was going to the ad agency Gyro, which is on like floor like 185 in downtowns, and like sitting with a bunch of people that, you know, I was like by far the youngest, and I like didn't really know what I was doing there, but that was probably the project where I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing something. Anyone else?
Yeah, just real quick, how do you do mouth poses? Do you use
Yeah, so I think I might have grabbed a couple of. Let me see if I grabbed a little tutorial video. Essentially, you know, like do you know what a vertex map is? It's like, you know, you take a cluster of points essentially and put a weight on them, and then you can take a controller and attach the controller to the weighting of those points. So that's what I did for the Ned character. Is I just had like a bunch of vertexes that were mapped to controllers. I didn't grab the little.
Basically, how far-reaching that weight map was on that vertex point, that controller would pull that area. Is what happened?
Yeah. So like if I had a null object that was essentially a circle or a spline, and then I think it's actually like a cluster tag or something, then you can tell you can use a vertex map to tell that object, if that object moves up, then those points move up as well. And then each one of those points has a weight to them. So if like the weight is only 50, if this object moves up 10 centimeters, then that only moves up 5 centimeters, you know? All right. Over there?
That last hand one was the in between like the wrist and your finger. Is that like a special bone or kind of like a crown?
Oh, that was kind of just to get each of the fingers in place rather than going straight from the wrist. Because if you were to go straight from the wrist and then weight it, then the weights would kind of like deform the entire hand. And you know, when you bend your fingers and stuff, for the most part, you want your palm to stay the way it is and not deform. So that's kind of what those bones were there for. Were almost like
5 different bones?
yeah, they were like structural bones basically.
So as far as getting your IK chain onto your geometry, is it as simple as making it like a child of the geometry and lining it up, or how exactly do you go from the IK chain to the geometry?
I can show you that.
Just do a quick demo.
Okay. All right. Let me open this. This.
It's kind of like going to the dentist and you're like, oh no, you're good. Or going and you're like, you have 5 cavities and you just don't know what's going to happen.
Okay. So this was the example I gave you. It's an IK and your mesh. Edit, undo. Yeah, I got it. All right. And so I'm just gonna kind of do this with the strip down. So here was the IK that I made with those bones, and then here's my mesh, and they're not connected right now. So if you select your joints and then you select your mesh, select your joints, then you select your mesh, then you go to character commands bind, and that'll auto weight it for you. So if you hit OK here, then if you click, this is one thing with weighting is I kind of stopped painting weights, and instead I paint weights by selecting points and adjusting the values there. I'll kind of show you what the fuck I'm talking about up here in a second.
Weights manager.
There you go. This weights manager, I did not know about this for the longest time, and it solved majority of my weighting problems, even though I still hate it. So you can see in here that each one of those joints, each one of these bones, is connected to certain points, and this is kind of like demonstrates which ones they are. So when you do that bind, it'll just auto weight everything for you, which it does a pretty good job, but sometimes it can really fucking botch it. And then if you want, you can kind of go in here and let me drag. Hold on. Why can't it get there? There it is. No. There we go. Okay. So this is essentially all the math behind it. And these are all, I have 55 points, and each one of these is connected to, you know, these joints. So if you really want to go, and I've done this for hours before, is try to make sure everything has a value of 100% between all the joints, and you can like use this filters to like filter things out and be like anything less than anything less than you know, 0.3, then you probably like these. Why do they even? You can just like zero those out. And
Or accidentally.
did I? There we go. So like these with a value of like 0.1, you just get rid of them. Make these 0. Let's see, delete. There you go. And so then that way, like all those points need to attach to a certain bone rather than having like each point kind of attached to certain bones and stuff. And then you can go in here and select like this one. I'll like even just zero these out, and let's do like that. Oh shit. That, and that, and then weights, options. Okay, and then you can do you can pick a mode. So I'll do like add here, and then add 100%, and then the next joint I'll do, let's just zero it out again, and then I'll select like this one, and that edge loop, and that edge loop, and then I'll go to my options here and just apply. So now basically we have one that's fully red, one that's fully green, and then if I want to have both these two selected, I can select this one, and then go over here to the mode to make it smooth, and then smooth can be a little touchy, so I just like apply that a couple times, and then when I move my knee, it all like, you know, bends hopefully the way you want to. Because if I didn't put that like smooth in there, let's see if I go back enough steps, then this is going to be like really sharp, and I have to fix that. Blah blah. Did that answer your question? All right. Anyone else before the wonderful Sean? Okay, I think we're good. We're done.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Lightbook, for letting us check out your college. All right, so we'll do like a 10-minute break. Do your potty, get some more pizza, get some drinks, and then we'll come back and Sean will serenade us with more lovely.
Yes.
Woo, and he knows a PC now.
Yeah, so sorry about that, everyone. I can explain the PC here in a minute. But let's take 10 minutes and...
10-minute break. We'll see you back here.
Get going here. Did you pause the stream, or...?
No, I'm just gonna like...
right? Like it's...
So I'm just doing this.
Oh, yeah? It's
Redshift crashed this project.
Yeah, that's weird. Like just something in the background.
Yeah, it is alpha. It's alpha software.
I've watched so many
big disclaimer.
There, like Brett Bays has like I've just watched like all of Brett Bays. Yeah, his he has like, you know, each one's like a half hour long, but it's just like all of them.
So we'll just do this.
The rigging ones I've watched. You know, those are like 2 minutes each. There's like 15 of them. Yeah. It can be confusing. It's fun. Yeah.
Good job, man.
That was awesome.
A lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
I just got done rigging my like first character ever like a couple weeks ago. It only took like 8 weeks to do.
I like the rigging part. The painting weights is just like so annoying to me sometimes.
I want to like upload your brain to my brain. Like
do
the
that
rigging
with Brett
stuff,
Bays.
like so Brett. That was all Brett Bays stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I need to like
all
just
Cineverse tutorials that I watched.
I called Maxon just working on this project recently and was like, "Is Brett Bays available?" I need to talk to that guy.
Swag up here. This is all stuff. Take, you know, out here it's dry, it's cold. We got chapstick. This is chapstick. Branded Maxon chapstick. You got. You can use a mouse anymore.
Is it organic?
You got this is eyeglass cleaner and headphones.
Lens cleaners too, or I guess eyeglass.
I'm gonna go
pee for the 10th time.
Okay. But yeah, they clean your lenses too. Let's see how the stream's doing. How's it going, YouTube?
17
people watching. Wow.
Yeah, I love the texturing you do on that stuff too.
Oh, thanks. I mean, a lot of that comes from like style photos that are given to me.
Love the texture.
Did anyone comment?
Oops.
Was anyone like, this guy sucks?
Nah, that's screwed. Yeah, I saw Brett at NAB and just like his knowledge is just so far over my head that
It's like too much.
he was too yeah, like he's level 99 and I'm like level 2 and he could have been speaking German.
I think is he work for Disney now?
That's gonna be
Yes. Yeah, so he works for Disney, so he's crazy. So he's the one who made the character object thing. But yeah, I'm like you. I never use it because it's just so overkill for what I need most of the time.
I think I've like tried to use it on a couple things, and it's just the way it's. I don't know. Maybe I haven't used it enough, but it's like it's just too confusing for me. And then if something doesn't work the way I want to or breaks, I don't know how to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he switched to like Maya now.
Oh really?
He probably does a little bit though. Yeah. I saw his what was the recent one? Was it SIGGRAPH? What's the one that Maxon always like posts their SIGGRAPH rewind? Yeah, SIGGRAPH.
Yeah.
I think
C-graph and NAB. Yeah.
I think he presented at a recent one. He talked about like modeling and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that's
or modeling for rigging, optimizing your rigging.
Because he had like cloth and stuff and clothes and everything. I mean, clothes is where I'm just like,
yeah.
That's cool.
Have you ever heard of Marvelous Designer?
Yeah, dude.
That's a program that like just does clothes.
Oh really?
Yeah, and it's supposed to work with cinema really well. And it's like, it's kind of weird. You almost have to be like a seamstress to know what the fuck's going on, because you just have like a flat image and you just draw like shapes, like a t-shirt shape, and then it like, you draw like the front and the back, and then you like pick where the seams line up, and then it'll just suction to your character.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
The guys at One Square, whenever they do their live stuff, they do quite a bit with that. But it's like it's like a $600 program
Just for that.
For shirts, you know.
Yeah, it's like how often am I
want
gonna?
it, but I was like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, $600 is for sure.
Hey, I'm gonna give you your mouse back.
I want to learn everything.
Loading up the wax.
I brought another mouse and I forgot this little guy. Like, damn.
Oh, really?
It's note-based, like.
Substance design is amazing.
I think Sean knows the most about all the softwares than anyone.
You know what? It's a rabbit hole that I wouldn't recommend, though.
You're just like, oh, this is new. I'm gonna learn everything about it.
No, but that's I trick myself into like thinking I'm gonna learn it, and then I like learn 10% of the software, and then I forget it 2 months later.
Oh.
And that's not, you know. But I always go back to cinema as my baby.
Did I leave my notes up there?
I'll like get in bed with like YouTube tutorials on my face. Like, I'm just kind of addicted to it. It's really bad. My wife's like, Jesus Christ, man, get it together. You know.
Where did I put my notes?
Oh,
Did I put them in my pocket?
that's a great question. I do not know.
Oh, they're all right.
Oh,
I
sweet.
don't need them, but there was a bunch of
Stuff I wanted to go over that I just flew right by.
It happens, man. Dude, in my class, like, it's just like, I'll be like, wait, did I just talk about this crap for 3 hours? The first class I did here, I didn't give anyone a break. It was like 4-hour-long class, and I didn't like even think about it, because I was just...
You were just going off?
Pretty much, yeah. Did this computer feel fast to you at least, minus the few hiccups?
My so that you know the model I pulled up with all the fuzz on it.
Yeah.
On that fuzz, all the fuzz on my work computer, which is a Mac Pro 2013.
Yeah. Was it like wouldn't?
I mean, it would chug. It would like chug slow when I'm like going around.
Pretty slowly.
It just opened right up. I was like,
sweet. Well, that's promising. Good to know.
It was snappy for sure.
Nice. It's crazy this is a live stream.
Oh, that's why that's up there.
I wonder, everyone's hearing this? God. I hope I didn't drink too much coffee.
Well, that's just right. Yeah, right. Well, that's
That's actually
they could never
I just like watched the tutorial on you basically like create, take a picture of the shape, type in a word or whatever, and you just link the object to that word. That's like one thing I wanted to show with that netcode work.
yeah, right.
For that, I think I actually did. I used the pose mark and with pose mark.
Because she hired
basically, you go to the right, it smiles. No, you go up, it smiles. You go down, it smiles.
I know.
Right. Yeah, so it's essentially like if I go base facing off, and then I'll do like four pose marks. Do like a happy face, and like a sad face, and then you just do like a duck face, and then like something that's like open. And then link the happy face to
like that was cool.
the sad face to the down direction. And then you link the O face to the left direction, and the duck face to the right direction. So basically, when you move the controller around, you just do the digital espresso, then it'll do like a certain percentage of each postman. Does that make sense? I should just send you a file. Just espresso and postman.
Pretty much just animate an entire movie with the pose morph tag. It's the best. What I didn't realize till recently is that I thought it only worked on like vertexes, and only like a year ago I realized it worked for like rotations and high art and everything. It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome, man. So it's actually recording like the rotational data for each thing. It's just like morphing between 0 degrees and 20 degrees, right? I'm just thinking of the math behind what it's actually doing, because it's always fast too. Yeah, well that's like kind of what I thought it was originally. I thought it was like points only for like the longest time. But yeah, it's like you can do all kinds of cool techie shit with it. Like
I really like to use it if I need to like fix meshes or something like that.
Yep.
Even like
oh yeah.
I need something to collide to something else.
Yeah.
From Colorado. Yeah, I got my
You guys have really for a while.
6K wide, 2K tall, 4K all octane renders,
Jesse yeah, that's a shitty example, but still, things like that.
Think you're ready to go.
Should I just dive in? Is everyone ready? Our audience shrank. What happened? Well, we got the live stream going, right? So that's awesome. So I'll just give you guys a quick brief about myself. Colorado native. Started playing around with Photoshop when I was like 15, and then it just spiraled from there into all these other programs and everything else. But let me actually pull up my website so you guys can just see a little bit more of what I do. But it seems like most people I meet kind of with Cinema 4D, at least they've learned After Effects and they've learned all these Adobe tools, and it's like, let's learn 3D now. And animation kind of came first, but I kind of dove into cinema just wanting to make like cool stuff out of 3D objects, because I knew I could render it and make it look photoreal, and all that stuff always really interested me. So getting into like, doing flyers and all this print stuff, it was always just, how can I do these crazy cool 3D models? And I happened to call up a buddy of mine, and I was like, hey, because he happened to be a 3D artist, and I was like, what software should I learn? And I was expecting him to tell me Maya or Studio Max or any one of those other amazing programs. And he was like, Cinema 4D, and I was like, what the hell is Cinema 4D? And this was like 11 years ago, maybe longer, just so everyone knows. And this software's been around for what, like 25 years, if you go back to like 1.0 or whatever. Just so everybody's kind of aware that it's been around a while, and there's a reason that it's stuck around, because it's awesome and it works really well. So needless to say, I was really glad that was what I started out with, because the learning curve is pretty dang small compared to some of the other programs that exist out there for doing this kind of stuff. So anyway, this is a lot of work that I have done kind of recently, but it's all just modeling for visual appeal. Like Zach does a way more better job at like worrying about topology for rigging and everything else, which is incredibly important. But when I kind of got into 3D modeling, I didn't really know that was even a thing, so I just started just making shapes and building them out the way that I thought was appropriate for the look that I needed. So this B model here was completely done in Cinema, just using subdivision surfaces and pretty simple geometry. But when you start smoothing everything out to make it look all sexy and shiny, like you can get to shapes like this relatively easily, kind of like some of what Zach was showing. This was a pretty fun one that I did more recently, and this was kind of an experiment between using a ZBrush and then another modeling tool which I really like using, called Rhino, but that's more of like a CAD-based software. But if you were, say, an Adobe Illustrator expert, then you could probably open up this program Rhino, and start building stuff pretty quickly, because it works completely differently than like a polygonal-based modeling tool such as Cinema 4D. But anyway, I'll play my reel real quick. And
what is your website? It's hard to tell from here.
Oh, yeah, I kind of have the address bar hidden there. It's just sastudios.tv. You can also go to seanastrom.com. And I spell my name S-H-A-W-N, if anyone's wondering. But yeah, I'll just play this reel. It's kind of old. I need to take a break from actually working and create a new one. But The end. Thank you, everybody. So yeah, let me just dive into cinema here and turn this guy down because the noise is a little crazy. So another thing I didn't mention, I teach the advanced digital effects class here, so it's part of the reason why we're having the first one here. So I have a few students in the audience, but needless to say, it's really awesome teaching Cinema 4D because it's relatively easy to learn compared to a lot of the other 3D tools out there. So I'm actually going to kind of show you guys a scene from scratch, but if you notice on my site, like I've definitely had my fair share of time modeling flowers, and that was just something that, like, you know, I had a client, well, I have a client called Insomniac, and they do an event called Electric Daisy Carnival, and I just kind of happened to, you know, get lucky in that they, you know, hired me to do these daisies, and I've done them for the last, I don't know, however many years they've been doing this show. So I've modeled a lot of flowers, so I thought that I would just show you guys my process for doing that. So I'm going to just bring in a circle spline here, and I'm going to set the radius to something like 50, and this is just kind of a little bit of a reference here. But one of the cool things with cinema is its sort of procedural nature. So you don't have to actually just like go in and start modeling polygons to get interesting shapes and cool things going. There's this amazing tool set inside of cinema called the MoGraph tools, and I've seen a lot of other 3D applications kind of copy this tool set because it's so powerful and really easy to use and get stuff going that might otherwise take a lot of time. So I'm going to bring in this little magical object here called the Mo spline, and if I just go over to the Simple tab here, and for any like new users out there that are wondering, you know, what all this crap is, in cinema is very easy to kind of follow. You have your attribute manager here, and you have the object manager too, and these two managers pretty much where you live to kind of bounce between objects. But if I just go in here with the Mo spline and I set, I'm going to just shorten the length here. Well, I'm going to go 100. Oops, not 1,000. Let's do 100. I'm just actually going to pop this guy into a cloner object, and then if I make the Mo spline a child of the cloner, we can see that it starts to replicate it or clone it, as you might expect. And if I go to the plane parameter here, I'm just going to switch it to be XZ, and now I'm starting to maybe get a bit of a flower shape, and I have the radius here, which by default I think was set to 50. So what's really cool about this Mo spline is it's kind of like a procedural joint chain, in that it allows you to kind of do some cool bending, and you're able to manipulate it in ways that might otherwise take some time to set up using joints or some of the other tools inside of Cinema, or any other 3D package for that matter. But one parameter I do want to lower here is the steps, and you can think of this as like the resolution of the spline. So I'm going to lower this to like 20 in this case. So that's really neat. You guys are like, oh, that's cool. But what a lot of people don't realize with the Mo spline object is that it works with a lot of the other tools, again, procedurally. So I guess what I'm going to do here is, let's just say these are our first petals here, and I'm going to make a copy of this guy, and we're going to do one here. And just so I don't get completely lost, my double click stopped working. I'm going to do A and B. And so this second Mo spline here is, I'm just going to change a parameter here, and you'll notice that with the cloner it's actually just iterating between these two Mo splines, so it's looking at every other object essentially. But it has this really fantastic mode called blend, and what you will see here is that I can actually sort of blend now between these, again procedurally, which is really cool because now I'm, you know, essentially morphing between all these objects. But one of the really interesting things about plants is their mathematical nature, and this doesn't really look like a flower. And in order to kind of make it look like a flower, we can use a very simple angle, which is I'm not good at math, so all I know is that I learned this angle, and it's kind of made all this stuff pretty easy. But it's basically the kind of golden angle, or the I'll just show you real quick here. Here we are. Yes, you can read about this stuff on the internet and learn all sorts of cool things. But it's just the golden angle. It's also the golden ratio, and it's found in nature all over the place. And if you look at this imagery here, you will see these cool shapes that we get in plants and things like that, and that's called a phyllotaxis. And this pattern, it first looks really kind of complicated, but it's literally just one angle is all you need to know, and I'll show you how to reproduce this inside of Cinema without doing any sort of fancy Python scripting or crazy espresso setups, which can be overwhelming. And I'm not going to lie that this is so simple that it took me like 2 years just to like figure out that this could be done just by knowing this angle. So I'm going to hop into my cloner here, and if we see here we have a count of 17, I'm going to just bump this up to like 20. And without setting up some crazy espresso to drive all this, I'm just going to punch in some math here in the parameters. But so if we have 20 petals, I want them to actually rotate around each at 137.508 degrees. So if we have this end angle here, we can see we have this angle, and if we just punch in here 137.508, and beautiful, another wonderful feature in Cinema is you can do math in any sort of the editable fields. I can do times 20, which is how many most splines we have here. And now, if you look here, this is starting to look a lot more organic and maybe like a flower. So I'm just going to do a little less bending, and it would probably help if I had a bit more. So let's do 50. Again, I could set this up with espresso, but I don't want to bore you guys with that, so I'm just going to do 137.508 times 50, and there we go. So this is actually the sort of natural thing that happens on a flower, and the theory is that each petal is trying to find more light, and this is the math that sort of describes the space. The next 137 degrees over is where there's more room. Optimal, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. So this is all well and good, and that's looking pretty cool. So how do we get some geometry on here? So I'm going to grab a plane object. I'm going to turn on garage shading so we can actually see the geometry. And we'll make this, well, I'm going to go 50 height. I'm going to go 20 here. That should be fine. And let's see here. A big thing with modeling, and Zach kind of pointed out, is you don't want to go overboard with your geometry because things will get heavy and not work that great. So always keep that in mind when you're working, and I'll probably adjust this as I'm going along here. But what I'm going to do is actually use this wonderful deformer called the spline wrap, and I'm going to place this guy as a child of my plane here, and you'll notice that it immediately scales to the plane here, although it is in the wrong direction, so I'm going to set it to Z+. And now if I actually make my plane a child of my first most spline here, you'll see that it's being cloned out with that. And then if I actually go into my spline wrap here, this is kind of a weird workflow, but it does work, and put it here in this spline field, you can see that I get some geometry that is perfectly mapped to my cloner. Now I can just hold down Control and copy this over, spline wrap, put the B in there, and we have that. And I'm going to just hide these deformers so you don't have to look at them. And now we basically have a pretty cool looking flower so far. Now Now the beautiful thing about the spline warp is that I can go in here under size, and it has these wonderful controls for me to control the shape of my geometry. And I can just go in here and procedurally model the shape that I want, or parametrically you could say as well. So now we're kind of getting a cool flowery look here, and I think I might add a few more subdivisions here.
It's like on a tutorial somewhere.
No, I did invent this procedure, I promise. But yeah, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Cinema 4D and the community, is not why we're doing this, is because the amount of information that's out there this day and age is awesome. Like, you can learn this stuff all over the place. You know, there's lots of great references and tools out there, such as Lynda and Hello Lux and a million other places, YouTube. Yes, eyedesyn, of course. Of course, this guy here, who's like the Sketch and Tune mastered wizard of the universe. But yeah, so but that's the beautiful thing about this software, is there's like 10 million different ways of doing something, and all I had to learn was a couple different tools to get this kind of setup going, and it worked out. But what's really cool now is I still have control over all this stuff, so I can go to, you know, my B-Mo spline here, and I can adjust the length of that inner pedal, for example. And now I'm kind of really starting to get something that looks pretty cool. Now, if this is looking a little too mathematical or not quite, you know, the look I'm going for, I can grab my cloner here and I can add a random effector. And instead of instead of modifying the position, I can just like kind of tweak the rotation here a little bit and just put in a low value here, and then I have a little bit of control over the randomness of each pedal. And another quick tip for Cinema 4D newbies is most sliders in Cinema 4D certainly do not stop at 100%. You can go way beyond that, and it will work as you'd expect it to. But for this, I'm going to leave it at 100, not 1,000. So yeah, moving along here, that's kind of what I wanted to show for the pedals, but we obviously have some other bits to do here. So for the next object, well, let me save this just in case we have any crashes, since I'm actually doing a project here. I'm going to call it Untitled 2. Another like huge workflow tip I would say is like open up a new scene. Chris Schmidt says this all the time, like Grayscale Gorilla Guy. Open up a new scene to work on something. Open up another new scene to work on something before you all kind of bring it together, because you know it's 3D software. Things can get heavy and run kind of slowly really quickly. So it's just kind of a good thing to get into the habit of doing. But I'm gonna bring in a cylinder primitive here, and I'm just gonna quickly change the parameters here to get it how I want. I want 5 sides. I'm going to throw in a few height segments. Something like that is good. Now, I'm going to make it editable, so I'm essentially going to break the parametric procedural nature of it, but that's okay for this particular element. I'm going to grab all these edges here, just scale them down, maybe scale them up, and then I'll just quickly here delete these guys. And you'll have to forgive me, it's a little wacky working on a laptop. I'm used to my dual massive displays and big desktop keyboard at home. I'm just going to throw an edge loop on here. Now I just right click to pull up this menu, and if I grab the bevel, well, if I actually selected the edges here and grab the new bevel tool, which is amazing by the way. And another thing I forgot to do, and I need to quick tip, Shift C can bring up any command in Cinema. I'm going to type in optimize here, optimize, and this in theory should connect all my points so that I have one piece of geometry, and I can verify that by just plopping it into a subdivision surface, and I can see that I was having an issue there with my points not connecting basically. So now I can grab this edge here, right click, And bevel away. Okay, there we go. That's all I needed. Now, I really want this geometry to stay super low because I'm going to duplicate this thing out by like 100 times or more, like 500 times. Last thing I need to do is I need to grab the axis on this guy and just bring it down here so that it's at the bottom of this little bit of geometry I just created. So we're just going to call this nub, because I don't know what they're actually technically called. Someone wants to check that out on Wikipedia. Another thing, to jump between newbies out there learning the software, to jump between scenes, just go to this window menu up here and you can jump between your scenes like this. So I'm going to just paste that guy in there. It's way too big, so I'm going to scale it down to something like, we'll do 10% for right now. But same thing, so I'm going to bring this into a cloner and I'm going to set it to radial, and I'm going to set the plane to XZ. I'm going to just crank up the count to something, let's just go 250 to be a little conservative here. And one thing I will turn on that definitely speeds up the process when you're working with the cloner is render instances, and that just keeps your viewport nice and snappy. If you notice my frames per second down here, you'll see you're getting some good feedback, and that's like a huge thing, especially if you're animating. Like if you're animating at 12 frames per second and your project, you know, needs to be at 24, then you're not going to be doing yourself any good because you're going to be animating at half speed. So definitely a huge thing to keep in mind. So, but if I select my cloner here and I grab a wonderful step effector, you'll see we're kind of getting that same sort of, you know, progression happening that you saw with the blending of the two clone objects. But if I go here, I'm going to just linearize this, well, progression between these objects here. And if I go into a parameter here, you'll see that it's modifying the scale. And I want to modify the position. And what I want to do is go Z, and we're just going to go minus 50. And again, you'll see here that we have that nice spirally effect. And all we have to do is that magic number again. So we have 250 clones, and I need to change this end angle. So 137.508 times 250. And just like that, we have that phyllotaxis pattern that is oh so desirable when you're trying to model a flower. And let me just scale down this nub here a little bit. Now,
Is this something you can also do with hair simulation tag?
yeah, I suppose you certainly could, like in terms of like the geometry that I'm cloning.
Yeah, I mean, would you be able to get that same type of effect with the math in the hair cloner? I mean, because it seems like when you use the MoGraph cloner, then you're kind of duplicating all of this geometry where the hair tag is more of an instance of it. I may be incorrect on that, but it's kind of one of what's thought about.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the way the hair works is it's going to sort of randomly, right? I think it just randomly instances where those hairs are generated. But there may be a way to go in there and like have a little more control over where they are. I mean, I know you can go in and replace the geometry that the hair is producing, but
or you could just do what you're doing, use splines, put a hair tag on the splines. Okay.
that's true. Yes, that would work as well. Yeah, so, and that's another wonderful thing about cinema is like all these tools talk to one another. Like when I first started learning the software, I was like, wait, do the purple icons have anything to do with the green ones and what's happening? And like, but everything does communicate with everything else. And that's kind of a bit of a learning curve for some new people there. But one really cool, well, it's really, I've been wanting this effector for like forever. It's called the push apart effector, and this came out as of R18. If I plop this onto my cloner here, you'll see that the radius is a little too high, but if I set this to say 1 or 2, you'll start to see that towards the center I'm getting the clones to no longer intersect, which is wonderful. And that's what I want for this, right? In order to make it look a little more natural. The next thing I might do is put in another step effector, and under this guy I'm going to just do the position in Y, and we can start to shape this guy you know, to kind of match more of our 3D flower here. And then I might be able to get away with doing a bit of a rotation. I kind of want to reverse the way that's rotating, but let me now with clones it can be a little tricky. You have to modify the actual axis of your object, or parent it to a null, but I don't want to get into the details of that. But let's just say for all intents and purposes that's what I was going for. So that's all working great. Next thing I might do is just model in something here to kind of, for everything to be sitting on. And one way you might be able to do that is to grab the old, well, the new and improved pen tool, which rivals many other pen tools and other softwares that exist. Adobe. So yeah, without now the grid is tricky here because it's only going to snap to what you see. It would probably help if I had grid point snap on, and it would probably help if I just hid this here, but without doing some amazing modeling of objects here, I'm just going to quickly, I don't know, I like to snap to the grid. It just makes me feel like I'm doing a much more precise job. Now if you hit the escape key with the new pen tool, that will kind of get you out of it. So I made this shape. I'm just going to throw it into a lathe NURBS, it's called, and then we'll turn on our cloner here again, and let's just say this is what we wanted. And again though, the procedural awesome nature of Cinema 4D is, like, you know, working in a non-destructive way so that I can go in and make changes. And if you're wondering there, I just went into the structure manager, and you can very easily find the points that, I'm going to turn off snapping, that you drew in, and change them around. And I just really like working with that. It's so much easier than trying to find them. Except that I need to just, where is that guy? This one here. Okay, that'll do. So moving along here, the next thing you may want to do is organize your scene just a tiny bit, but I'm just going to bring in a null, throw these two guys in here, just make sure that's working. Actually throw this in here too, and then we're going to bring in another most line, and I'm going to check the clock here. I don't know if I've been talking for 3 minutes or 20. It's hard to tell. We're going to just rotate this guy up 90 degrees. So this is going to be our stem, and we will make it a little bit longer, and then what may be a surprise to some C4D users is I'm actually going to clone this guy onto my most spline. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is just to keep it all procedural. And if we just clone it one time, and then I adjust offset and get this guy up to the top, and then with this new cloner I have here, just gonna rotate that 90 degrees. And then what's really nifty with the most spline is I can also throw a circle spline in there, for example, and bring in, I don't need to track any motion right now. If I just, well, yeah, throw all this into a sweep NURBS. It's actually gonna sweep along the most spline. If you can see that there. If I just go into the most spline here, what's cool is that it actually controls the width. The width is right here. So regardless of the width of your, circle spline here, the most spline object kind of has this parameter here that you can work with. So another quick thing I'm going to do is switch this guy to uniform and actually decrease this value just so we have less geometry. And all these segments here are driven by the steps amount again. So if I set that to 20, there we go. Now I think I'm going to lower this just a hair. Now let's just say that I would like a little more like displacement or deformation in here. I can actually grab a displace deformer and make it a child of the circle object and set this to noise. And well, if I bring in a bit more geometry here and increase the displacer here, you'll start to see that it's deforming not the actual geometry but the spline that the geometry is being generated from. So just kind of a cool way to work that's pretty lightweight on the software. So now if I go to my stem here, of course I have all those nice controls where I can manipulate. It would probably help if I left that in that hierarchy there. So now I have all the controls over the positioning of this guy and everything else. So that's cool, you guys are all thinking. But let me show you something that's even more cool. So another reason to use the most spline and all these cool MoGraph tools is that they can be affected by our good old particle effectors, I think they're called, maybe, forces. Yeah, so if I throw in a turbulence here and just hit the play button, nothing's going to happen until I refresh a little bit, and then you'll start to see that some things are freaking out here. And for some reason there's like a little priority issue where you kind of have to like refresh it a couple times. But if I actually lower the strength here and just increase the scale, oh, now we have a nice, more organic looking situation going on with the flower here. So that's kind of how you could, procedurally build a non-destructive animatable flower that gives you all the control to go back in and go back through and tweak all this stuff to your heart's content, and make changes to the width of the petals, and go in here and change the angle of the petals and all that good stuff. So yeah, wonderful way that Cinema 4D works here. Now another quick thing that I might try and do is I want to add some, so you can see the turbulence here is kind of, I'm going to disable that here just so I can work with my model real time. But I want to add some thickness to the petals, so I'm going to go in here to these plane objects, and one way you can actually add thickness in Cinema 4D is totally weird and bizarre. You can actually use the explosion effects. If I hide this guy and put this time value to 0, then under this cluster tab I actually have a thickness parameter. So I'm just going to go 0.5 on these petals because I don't want a lot of thickness there. Well, maybe I'll do 1. And same thing here for those guys. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to try and render them with subsurface scattering, and in order for subsurface scattering to work you kind of have to have an enclosed piece of geometry. Doesn't really work with a single-sided mesh. So that kind of brings me to the next part of my presentation, and hopefully the computer won't crash because I wanted to show you guys Redshift a little bit. Yeah, question?
Why not use a cloth object?
I have found the cloth object is magical and works great, but I have found that for just simple normal extrusion, that if I want to do it non-destructively, that explosion effects is a little lighter weight. But it just depends. Like if you want to add in, like Zach was showing, if you want to be able to subdivide your geometry, the cloth object is awesome for that. You can add thickness and subdivide, and it works wonderful for clothing and things of that nature. But yeah, question.
So out of curiosity, since the petals are going to be a little lighter than the stem and the flower, or the whole flower itself, is there a way that you can have a separate turbulence affect just the petals so they move kind of independent of the rest of it?
Absolutely. Yeah, and one thing you can do here essentially would be to go into, well, you would essentially have to go in and under each object you would want to isolate which one is affected by what object. So like, you know, if I select both these cloners, for example, and I might be mistaken as to the actual workflow for this, but I know it can be done because I've done it in the past. Fields, there we go, include, exclude. So for the most blinds, for example, yeah, you have this fields tab here, and that's where this stuff's coming. So I could exclude this turbulence from, so now the petals aren't being affected at all. So you kind of see that. So yeah, great question there. So yeah, and that could be a little lighter weight, you know, if you wanted, you know, to not have your scene be so heavy. And actually, real quickly, I do want to show you guys one other workflow thing that I do all the time. And if I just set up a null object here, throw an expressor tag on here, and if I just create some quick user data, I want to actually set this to a Boolean, because I essentially want to create a switch, and I'm just going to call it render time, and like Time Magazine. No, but that creates basically a checkbox for us in this user data, which I added to this null object. And by the way, you can add user data to any object in Cinema 4D. It doesn't just have to be a null. You could add it to an effector or anything. But this just is a place for it to live, if you think about it like that. But if I throw my null into my expresso tag, which again is semi-confusing, but this is just kind of the workflow, and then I bring my turbulence in here, essentially what I want to do is have this Boolean data drive the object properties, basic properties, enable option here on the turbulence effect here. So now if I go to my user data, I can just drag it in my viewport here. I can do show always, and then I have this sort of on-off switch. You see how that's driving that guy. And now any object that I bring into my scene that's super heavy, that's slowing shit down, I just hook it up to that guy and turn it off so that it's not affecting me while I'm trying to animate and work. Of course, you can go into your project settings, and there's some global options here, like use deformers. If I turn that off, you'll see that, you know, the petals go away because they're being created using that spline deformer, or the spline wrap deformer. So just another quick workflow tip there. But yeah, kind of moving along here without making this flower like crazy detailed. I'm going to try and show you guys a little bit of Redshift. This is kind of the latest and greatest render engine out there. There's far too many, and it's kind of overwhelming, but it's really an impressive render engine, and I'll just point it out to you guys here on the internet. But they had their first version working in Maya, and then they went on to develop it for, I think, Softimage and Studio Max, and then they currently have the Houdini version in beta, and then the Cinema 4D is an alpha. And I believe if you email these guys and say, hey, I'm doing all this cool stuff and I want to test out your render, they will most likely hook you up with a license that you can try out and use. But you know, I think they do try and keep the beta testing and alpha testing to a minimum, so just keep that in mind. But they're really awesome. They've been super friendly. But if you look at, if the gallery would load here, come on, internet. If you look at some of the stuff that's created with this engine, it's pretty phenomenal. And I do not know why their website is not working. Maybe it's because we've got like 25 tabs open in Cinema 4D and everything else going, and screen casting and everything else. But there's some amazing work being done using this render engine, and their whole claim to fame is that it's not a unbiased render engine. That's kind of what everybody's doing. You'll see all these render engines claim to be unbiased, but their whole goal with this render engine was to make it as fast as possible using the GPU. As opposed to using the CPU. Most render engines of late have been always on the CPU. Yeah. Question over here.
Are you limited to NVIDIA or API?
From what I understand, they work best on NVIDIA cards, but I think they are kind of cross-platform. But I'm not an expert in this render engine. I've been using it for about 2 days. But they've been really amazing. Like, I did test out a couple other render engines on here that are GPU only, and like this laptop has a 980 graphics card on it with 8 gigs of RAM, which is pretty cool. Hence, one reason to have a PC laptop is you can get some pretty beefy video hardware on a laptop. But from what I understand, it's mostly compatible. I think I've read that it's faster on NVIDIA cards as of right now. But it's crazy because if you look at their gallery, like most of the work that they have on here is animation, which typically you go to like other engines sites and they only show the still artwork. But needless to say, even though it's a biased render engine, you can still work with it in a physical way and get incredibly realistic, amazing looking renders. That always boils down to the artist using the engine. So anyway, back to Cinema. I'll fire it up here again. It's an alpha, so we already had it crash once when Zach was up here. Sorry about that, buddy. But yeah, so it has a little IPR just like a lot of the other newer render engines. And I hope am I doing okay on time here? We good? Okay. And I'll just start throwing together a quick scene without getting too crazy because... What's that? I have been saving, yes. It's like, it's muscle memory. I don't even do backups because it's just like I naturally do it every like 5 minutes. So I'm just going to bring in an area light and we'll start trying to kind of light this flower here a little bit. I'm going to throw a target on my light here and we'll just have it target let's have it target the actual... Oh, that's interesting. It's not going to look at that because it's procedural. That's okay. I just am going to bring a couple lights in here, and I don't want to be like manually positioning them, so that's why I'm using the target tag. And so wherever I have this null that I just created, my light's going to be pointed towards that object, which is kind of nice. So, but if I fire up the interactive preview window here, I believe it's short for, you'll start to see that I get a really nice, fast preview. And I'm going to make a second light here and bring it over here and just do a quick lighting setup. And we may hear the fan in my computer rev up here because it's going to be kind of rendering all this real time. Can you guys see that? Okay, cool. So here I can go in and start to colorize my lights. I like to kind of go in sometimes with temperature and do that. And then without cranking up the intensity of the light, what is probably a better workflow is to bring in a camera, and then if we add a Redshift camera tag under exposure here, I can enable these settings, and now I have like ISO control that I would get in a real camera. And for any of you that are like really interested in just focusing on look development or making badass renders, I would really recommend going out and buying a decent camera and just actually practicing with a real camera, so that you can start to understand, because all the software is trying to do is just emulate reality, and it helps to have a real camera. So, sorry, laptop keyboard, not used to it. So as you can see, I'm already getting some pretty cool lighting. now on top of this, I can go into here and bring in a dome light. And with my dome light, this is how I can bring in a... I don't need to play any Steam games right now. Sorry, my double click is just not working on the Wacom pen. So I'm just going to bring in an HDR here. We'll just do reflect shadow. So that's how I can quickly bring in an HDR. And now my exposure is way too high. So I'm just lower this. And if I select the dome light down here at the bottom, there's an able background. I'm going to just deselect that. And actually what's really nice is I can bring in a back plate, and I could bring in this sort of blurred version of the HDRI here, if that'll load up. Oh yeah, thank you. I didn't realize that controlled this as well. So, but yeah, you can actually have a different HDRI map for your reflections and your background and blah blah blah. So if I lower my film speed here a little bit, you'll start to kind of see what I'm getting. Bring in a ground plane here. But for those of you who have used other render engines and know how slow 3D rendering can be, I would hope that you think this is pretty good and fast. So another thing to point out is I'm getting like, close to 100 frames per second in my viewport as this is rendering. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to just decrease brightness here on my dome light. It's a little bright. But I just wanted to show you guys how you could bring in HDRI lighting. And I don't love the back plate, so I'm going to hide that. But the next step here would be to just throw in some materials real quick. So I'm going to bring in sort of just the Redshift material. This is like their Uber shader. It just works for everything. And it really can kind of create any material. But if I go in here, you'll see that I actually have some really nice presets. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to do a gold, and I'll, let's say, throw that on this top clone here. And then I'll duplicate this guy and do a aluminum and throw it onto stem here. And let's do one more. And I will go. And I'm just trying to keep this relatively simple so my machine doesn't freak out and crash. But we'll throw that metal here on these little nubs here. So, but if I go back into these presets are actually physically correct models of these materials, which is really cool. A lot of these newer engines are working this way. If I switch the Fresnel type here to IOR Advanced, like we can actually see these are the correct IOR values for gold. And there's a really nifty little website if you guys want to, build physically correct materials. There's a site called refractionindex.info, I believe. I can't spell, so bear with me here. Let's just see what we get here. Anyway, you can go to this website and get all the information you would need to build materials like scientifically, physically correct. There's a bit of a learning curve as to what these values mean, but there's a lot of good tutorials out there and just lessons on how to get it going. But I'll just show you real quick here. For example, like if I select gold, and if you look here, like what happens with like a real material is the fall off for each wavelength of red, green, and blue is different. So they actually change over the angle So that's what this kind of graph here is representing. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the wavelength values for like red are 0.65. So this would be the wavelength value for red. Green or blue is 55, and then green is 45. So if you just remember those numbers, these numbers here that this is spitting out, the N and the K values here, you could go in and copy those values into these boxes here, and you would have a like physically correct material based on science. So if you're into that sort of thing, and I did not discover and learn all that on my own. There's some amazing training that Stefan Loeb has put together as a master class for V-Ray, and he goes over all this stuff in great detail if you guys are interested in learning that. Real quickly, I want to actually take my gold that I have here on the pedals, and I'm just going to do custom, and well, just to be on the safe side here, let me create a new material here, and we'll just replace the gold. And I just want to show you guys how fast the subsurface scattering is working. But under the refraction and transmission here, we have subsurface scattering, and let me just disable the reflection. Sorry, I'm used to Arnold and being able to like navigate the IPR, so sorry about that. But if I change the color here of the refraction, and actually I need to just get rid of the diffuse, and I need to crank up the weight on the refraction index, or I guess overall weight here. We basically have like a fake glass going on here, and now under my subsurface scattering I can start to get some nice subsurface scattering effects, and a lot of this is just trial and error in getting these things to do what you want, and it'd probably help if my pedals were a little lighter, but you can start to see here that we have some nice translucency on these objects, which is rendering like really fast, especially for a laptop. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys, is how quick and awesome this engine is to work with. Absolutely, yeah. It's got some cool post effects, but since this is the alpha version, I don't know that they're in this version of Cinema, but I know that in the fully featured one they are. And if I render this real quick, you'll see that it's the standard render engine, and that's because I actually haven't switched to Redshift in here. But you'll see, so that's just representing my one GPU, and it's pretty noisy, but it cranks through this pretty quick. And if you can imagine having a computer with like 4 graphics cards, like each card would represent a bucket, and it would blow through this pretty quick. I've also done some tests with like caustics and all these other cool effects, and I've never seen a render engine calculate caustics as fast as Redshift. It'll just like blow through them, and like all of a sudden you have beautiful caustics and everything else. But I could, show that for like another 2 hours.
You want to do questions, or I can do some prizes?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, let's do some questions. I hope I covered enough things for everyone to be excited and learn something. Yes, Zach.
How well do like the materials work with this? Like, I just saw you render out some Redshift images in the standard renderer, and I mean they worked.
Yeah, I think it recognizes like simple values, like it's going to recognize color and stuff like that. But
not like those weird values you were showing.
Yeah, like that stuff's not going to translate now. But what actually I think the plugin developers are always working on is like being able to translate the Cinema 4D standard materials to Redshift. So if you open up an old C4D scene, in theory you could just like hit like a button and it would batch them all over to Redshift, and they would be close enough to where you wouldn't have to spend like days like rebuilding all your materials and everything else.
Have you tested that though with like a regular cinema material, converting it or just rendering it?
Not with Redshift yet, but I know it works pretty great with V-Ray and some of the other, and Octane, yes, for sure. But yeah, so more questions?
Cool.
Yes, here. Oh, sorry, I got double hands here. Here, we'll go up front first here.
Okay, can you get the real-time feedback with the depth of field on it?
Yeah, all that stuff works pretty dang well, as far as I can tell. But again, this is a laptop. But it does have a 980 graphics card in it. But if I go here, oh, they even have it called bokeh. So if I enable that, and it probably makes sense for me to put my f-stop to low value. And then it's kind of hard to do if I don't have any objects off into the distance. So let me just real quickly get an object in the back here, and something is still not working quite right. It's got all the nerdy features you would want for that to work, except that I can't quite get it to work. But it's here, so in theory, it may have to do with where, well, yeah, it probably would help if my camera was focused on the flower. And yeah, it might be in the render settings here. Again, I've been using Redshift for like 2 days, so a bit of a learning curve there. Shoot, sorry, bad demo there. It works. It does work. It's got, you know, they say it's unbiased, but it really does work in a physical way. Like that's the idea behind all these new render engines, just for them to be easy to use. It's like picking up a camera and taking a picture. That's the goal. But Redshift's just doing a lot of cool stuff behind the scenes. Like I actually don't even have GI turned on, but if I can turn it on here, there's photon mapping and, you know, iridescence mapping and all these different methods to more quickly calculate your scene. So next row.
Yeah, I was just curious if you tried or played with the take system and maybe doing like different permutations of the flower, or you just kind of know what you're going for.
No, that's a great question and or idea, because yeah, that's such a new feature in cinema that I haven't even thought to do that, but that's actually really cool. I guess, you know, he's kind of thinking that with the new take system, you essentially can create different versions of your scene. And I've used this like a handful of times, so I don't think I should risk doing a live demo. But
I have no idea either. I just thought of the idea that it might be possible.
yeah, no, it's really fantastic. And like, you know, the old workflow would be to like have like 14 versions of your Cinema 4D file, or create like a bunch of XREFs or whatever else. Maybe Brian could come up here and show us how that works. But yeah, you essentially can have multiple settings within your one scene. So yeah, for like a character rig even, you could have like different poses and just jump between them. So it's a really cool system there. But yeah, any others?
Going once.
Going once, going twice. It's beer time.
All right, so let's give it up again for Sean and Zach, our presenters.
Yes, this guy.
So again, next month, we'll send out info. Nick, the gorilla, Grayscale Gorilla, will be here in Denver, and we're gonna go over ratio and drink some beers with him. So I'll send you guys all information. Sign up to the Colorado C4D newsletter and all that stuff. Facebook page, the Twitters, the MySpaces, the tweets, whatever. Hot or not, go on that. As far as presenting, so we're trying to. So that's next month. But we're always looking for people who want to present, who want to demo some of their stuff. This is what we're here. This is what Colorado C4D is all about: is to shine the light on you, share knowledge, get better every day, and just keep getting that nice continued learning. Because I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing me talk all the time on Vimeo and all that crap. So I'd like to learn stuff from you guys. So I just want to give away some prizes. We can do that. I don't know. We lost a lot of people, but just want to thank all of our sponsors. They donated a ton of prizes, especially Maxon. Let's give up a big round of applause for Maxon. They provided all of the pizza and the drinks and the swag. If you didn't get your swag, we got a table of swag up here. We're going to give away some prizes here. Let me first say goodbye to the internet. Goodbye, internet. Thanks for tuning in.